I mean, I don't want to become the sort of poster boy of the handmade, but I do put an awful lot of effort, physical craft effort into my work, and I suppose my work has what I used to call taxi driver appeal. They'll look at it and go, oh, there's a lot of work in that. And that's not a bad thing, because I'm interested in my work appealing to a large audience. And one of the ways I can do that is to put in some obvious demonstrable skill, though I wouldn't necessarily call myself the most skillful artist. Also, I like things that are relatively humble in some ways. Though this is a great big vase, quite in some ways quite flashy, it is still just a pot, and it's I quite like the fact that it's not screamingly, shockingly, and it's not an extreme experience that people want nowadays. It's a more reflective, decorative appearing, thing. And a lot of artists perhaps would balk at calling their work decorative, but I think, for me, that's quite a noble thing to aspire to be decorative. Let's face it, when you walk into a room and you look at art, your initial response to it often is, purely unconsciously aesthetic. It's just as oh, that looks lovely. And you might not be able to say why it looks lovely, and you haven't read the label yet. You might just respond to the harmony of the colour or the proportion or the texture or something in a purely sensual way. And I think those things often in a world where the people who are in charge of art are writers, the curators, the critics, the historians. Not many of them are actual artists who actually put red next to blue and say, does that look right? They're people who write for a living. And so they want meaning, they want significance. And so the first thing that often people ask you is, what does it mean? And I'm going to go, well, don't you like the look of it? What do you think of the colour? And what do you think of the way it's, the textures? Do you think they work together? And of course, that's a much more ambiguous and intuitive field, and people are very uncomfortable on it. I want people to enjoy my work on a purely visual way. That's the most important thing always with me. When I was making the print for a politician, I was looking at Chinese scroll paintings, and I look at it, I think, oh, I like that, I'll have a go at one of them, I'll do my version. That's what I do very often. And so the initial kind of impetus for a work will be something to do with the look of it, and the history, rather than the idea. It doesn't mean that the ideas are any less valid, but because inspiration doesn't come on demand, you have to be nice to it. I suppose again, a lot of what I say about my work, I can tell you what it means, the meaning of it, or of course a lot of that I made up afterwards, because the people would like to think that I have I sit and I have sort of like a moment of inspiration and an idea, a concept, and then I carry it out. But often that's a really bad way of making art. So I often just think I'd like to make a long, detailed drawing. It's been the case for quite a long time that contemporary art, good contemporary art, is so expensive that a lot of museums, even great big national museums, can't afford it. And so they are increasingly dependent on grant-giving bodies like the Art Fund and generous philanthropists to buy the art. And so increasingly so in the economic situation we're in now, we're going to become more and more dependent on kind donations by generous individuals and groups. I think that's an opportunity, because it's not just for the museums to sort of forge links with sort of different people, but also for the people themselves. Because people don't give money to museums necessarily entirely, out of, they think that there is a good thing to come out of it. You get a good, it's a good world to belong to, the art world. I was coming up on the train slightly dreading, oh my goodness me, what is it going to look like? Because whenever you give your work up to a collection and they have control over how it's displayed, it can be nerve-wracking, because it might not be always to your taste. But I'm very pleasantly surprised, actually, that the young curators here, the creative consultants, have done a great job.